Hello, everybody. The question is it logical to believe in God? We're going to take a look at that and see if it is or not. See if believing in God makes sense. And we're not going to be looking at any scriptures or anything like that. We're just going to approach this from just a purely logical point of view. Does it make sense? Is God just an adult version of Santa Claus? Is it just something that people made up to just make themselves feel better, or to believe in an afterlife, to just kind of overcome the fear of death? So they made up this fantasy character? Well, let's see. Does it make sense to believe the Supreme Being created the universe? Well, what are the other possibilities? Well, you could believe that the universe was always here, or you could believe that the universe created itself from nothing. So let's look at these two options and see if they make any sense. The universe was always here. Okay? The problem with that is that the universe is expanding. It's not just, here. I mean, it's moving. It's moving outward. So if the universe was always here, you would expect that it would just be everywhere. It wouldn't be moving. It wouldn't be expanding. And so scientists at this point, that's why they have the Big Bang Theory, they don't believe that the universe was always here. They believe in a beginning, and one of the reasons they believe that is because the universe is expanding. Another reason is the problem of what they call infinite regress. And to kind of illustrate the problem, I have a picture here of some dominoes. And in order for the dominoes to be falling, at some point, one domino had to be tipped to start the cascade, okay, of dominoes falling. So if the dominoes had always been there, how do I say this? If one domino being was dependent on another domino falling to hit that one, and that went on forever, you would never have a point where the first domino fell. And if you never have a point where the first domino fell, then no dominoes would ever fall. So you have to have a beginning. You have to have a beginning. And since the universe is expanding outward, then there was a beginning. There was a point where it started to expand. That means there was a point where something had to happen. There was an action that had to take place. So you can't go back forever and say, well, this domino depended on the first domino, on the domino behind it, which depended on the domino behind it, which depended on the domino. If you do that, then you have no beginning. And if you have no beginning, then no action took place to cause something to fall. Hopefully that makes sense. Scientists no longer believe that the universe was always here. Okay, so the next thing is, it created itself out of nothing. Well, there's a problem there too. This is Stephen Hawking's explanation, and he subscribes to the theory that the universe created itself out of nothing. And he's saying that this represents a ripple on the surface of the sea of nothingness. And basically what he's saying is, at some point there was nothing, but these ripples in nothingness, and honestly, it doesn't make any sense because you're looking at, a ripple is something, and the ripple is positive and negative, so that's something. And here's a further explanation. The ripple's possession of only one characteristic is important because whatever it is that exists at the most fundamental level, it can only have one property. Okay? Well, think about this. If you have one property, are you nothing? You're something. So, right off the bat, he's contradicting himself. He's saying this is nothing, but then again, it is something, and then it gets more convoluted. Nothing becomes something, but at the same time, it all adds up to nothing, and thus it remains nothing. You could actually say that the universe is composed of nothing. Now, to me, this sounds like gibberish. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense. Either there's something or there's nothing. And I don't know. He's saying, well, it's all nothing really. And I mean, I just don't understand what he's saying. I really don't understand what he's saying, and I consider myself to be reasonably intelligent, not a genius. But he's saying you could actually say that the universe is composed of nothing, so we're all nothing. That makes sense? Not to me. What is nothing? One day I actually sat down and thought about it. What is nothing? In my mind, nothing is not what Stephen Hawking calls nothing, because to him, nothing has one property. To have one property means you're something. There's something there. So, what is nothing? I mean, if you really believe that nothing created everything, then I think it's important to kind of define nothing. Well, let's see if we can do that. Is nothing a giant dark vacuum like the inside of a black hole? Well, I think it's even less than that. No, if you're going to have nothing, you're going to have the absence of matter. So you get rid of all matter. And most people would say, okay, if you get rid of all matter, that's nothing. Not really. You need to have the absence of space. Now, you would say, what? The absence of space? Well, yeah, because space is something. Space has utility. I mean, when you have an empty box, you can put stuff in an empty box. I mean, space is a container for matter. I mean, space has utility. We know what space is. We use space. Space is something. So you have to get rid of space. You have to get rid of matter and you have to get rid of space. You also have to get rid of time. Time, we know what time is, and we measure it, and we exist in time. There's a picture of a clock disintegrating, and we use clocks to measure time, and time is something. We exist in time. So you'd have to get rid of time. You'd also have to get rid of energy. Energy is something. In fact, it takes energy to make this video. My body runs on energy. Energy is something, so we need to get rid of that too. We need to get rid of light. Light comes from energy. And you couldn't have any light to have nothing. We know what light is. We'd also have to get rid of darkness. Now, some of you are probably going, whoa, get rid of darkness. Yeah, we would, because I know what darkness is. If I'm in a dark room and I close my eyes, I can see darkness. And you could say darkness is a container for light, just like space is a container for matter. We know what darkness is. We have a name for it. We call it darkness. So you have to get rid of that too. Then when you get rid of all those things, what do you have left? Well, you've got the absence of everything. The absence of matter, space, time, energy, light, and darkness. So then you have nothing. Can you imagine nothing? I mean, the type of nothing that I just described. The closest that I could come to it would be to try to remember what it was, try to remember having thoughts before I was born. That's about as, and there's a blank. Absolutely nothing. No picture available. There's nothing I can use to describe it because it's nothing. That's what would have had to have created the universe. Now, is there any evidence to support that? Any at all? I mean, I can't think of anything that would support that nothing created everything. Everything. And, or anything, really. And, I don't think you can either. Anyone who's watching this, you're probably kind of scratching your head going, well, what he just described as nothing, how could that create anything? Okay? So where did the universe come from? Well, there's only one logical option. God. God created the universe. That's the only other logical option for why we're here. Now, a lot of you are going to say, okay, well, who created God? Well, by definition, God could not be created. God would have to be eternal. If God were created, then whoever created God would then be God. And then whoever created that being would be God, and then just go on forever. Now, you're probably saying, okay, you've lost me here. We're now at who created God, and, how do we get past that? Well, God is infinite. And I guess the best way to really explain this is we live in a universe where we exist in time and space. In order for a being to create the universe, that being would have to exist outside of time and space. And if you exist outside of time, you're eternal. Because God would have had to create time. So in order to create time, you have to be able to exist outside of it. And so that would be the answer to how God can be infinite. God is not like us. He doesn't exist only in time and space. He can exist in time and space, but he doesn't have to, because he's the creator. He exists outside of time and space in order that he would be able to create time and space. And we can't really understand that, and the reason why we can't understand is because we're finite beings. As finite beings, we have no point of reference. We're not able to, relate that to anything because we just don't exist outside of time and space. So we have no point of reference. This is kind of my way to sort of try to illustrate this. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Flatland, but I'm going to use Flatland as an illustration. And Flatland is a two-dimensional universe, and the people in Flatland are flat. They live in two dimensions. There's no height in Flatland, hence the name Flatland. And this little box bouncing around is just to illustrate that if you lived in Flatland, the only time that you would be able to detect this box is when it's actually touching the ground. Other than that, you would not be able to detect the box because it's now in three-dimensional space. It's in once the box leaves the ground, it would just simply disappear. So I'm using this analogy just to make the point that, just as the people in Flatland could not comprehend three-dimensional space because they live in two dimensions, we can't comprehend the eternal attributes of God because of our limitations, because we exist in a finite universe, and we're created beings. We're not eternal. So, it's kind of like, could a dog understand algebra? No. It's just, he's just not on that level. So, anyway, I made this little well, I didn't make this little cartoon. I pasted this little cartoon in here, and you guys can read it. I think it's amusing. Not really funny, but amusing. And I guess what I would say is, if at this point you still say, hey, I believe that the universe came from nothing, I don't believe in a creator, then please acknowledge that you are believing this not based on fact, not based on logic, but based on faith. Now, I spoke to somebody once about this topic, and he basically just told me, that, well, scientists will figure it out one day, and, if the scientists believe it, that's good enough for me. And, even though it doesn't really make sense to me that the universe created itself, that's what, other people believe, and scientists seem to agree with that, and so I'm going to believe it based on that. Be honest enough to say that, okay, you're believing this based on faith. You're not believing this based on because it makes sense. And I guarantee you that the scientists who believe that the universe created itself are not going on it based on fact. They're not going on it based on logic. They're going on it based on faith. In their mind, they're just saying, well, at some point we'll figure it out. At some point we'll when science and technology progresses, we'll be able to, figure out how everything could be created from nothing. In the meantime, we're just going to believe it, and that's faith. And if you believe it was created based on nothing, you are also doing this based on faith, which means that atheism is basically another religion. It's faith-based. It's not based on logic. It's not based on fact. So, anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to be making some others, so I hope you guys, if you like this, you will look at the other videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.